Hello, my friends, and welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm Jeff Beveridge, and I'm excited to be bringing you this video on the topic of being Agile educators, applying Agile mindset and tools to our training projects. And with the Agile mindset, during the development of what was originally a 1-hour video, I've opted to break this down into 3 parts. So this video is part 1, Agile and ADDIE, the instructional design lifecycle of analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate. We're going to talk about the connection of Agile mindset frameworks and tools to that ADDIE instructional design model. In part 2, we will take a closer look at some specific techniques that we can use to be more agile in our training development projects, so kind of on the instructional design and development side. And then part 3, we're going to take a look at how can we apply and embrace the Agile mindset in the classroom as teachers in our training. You can really watch these videos in any order. 1, 2, and 3 is merely the sequence in which I recorded them. I hope that they're valuable. I'm looking forward to watching all of the videos that I know so many of you are submitting for this 2020 PM Training Virtual Workshop. I thank you so much for the hard work that you do every single day, and I hope that some of the topics that we talk about in this series will be helpful and valuable to your training. We'll start off with an overview of how Agile mindset frameworks and practices fit with our existing frameworks for training development and delivery, most predominantly the ADDIE instructional design model, right? Analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate. So we know that Agile is not just a single framework or approach. It is really, it's an umbrella term for a number of different frameworks, approach, and practices and techniques that all have in common this shared mindset around learning as we go, iterative planning and development, adaptive planning, and the ability to respond to change. And I love this quote from GSA's 18F group. They say, Agile is something you are, not something you do. And I agree so wholeheartedly with that. The true value of Agile, beyond any specific framework or technique that you could apply, right, is the mindset with which we approach the work that we're doing. And so our best understanding, or our best source of information for that Agile mindset is the Agile Manifesto. And we have it here modified slightly to fit the training environment. And shout out to my friend Jerry Pruitt, my first Scrum Master a number of years ago, who showed me a slide very similar to this with every time we see the word software in the Agile Manifesto, we could just very quickly and easily cross that out and write in training, or really any product, service, or result that our project is creating, right? If it's an Agile project, or even if it's not an Agile project, we could still embrace this mindset. And yes, the value statements were written with software in mind, but we could just as easily think about training, right? So individuals and interactions, working, training. Customer collaboration, responding to change, right? These values are very, very important to us. These values are supplemented by the 12 principles, right? Same deal, we'll see the word software sometimes. We could just think products or training. Whatever it is we are creating, these values and principles are applicable to the work that we're doing, especially if we want to be Agile. And these principles, right? We know that there are these common themes of short incremental delivery, right? Rapid delivery, rapid feedback, the ability to respond to change, to learn as we go, and of course, right, valuing and embracing the value of people on our teams, our developers, our users, our stakeholders. They're all people, and we recognize that and we value that, right? Let's also try to refresh our memory and talk about what do we mean by ADDIE, this training development and instructional design and delivery model that you're probably familiar with, right? And even if you're not an instructional designer or technically in the training field, if you're a project manager, you recognize this. This is a project life cycle, simple as that, right? Analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate. And we'll see over the next couple of slides that this ADDIE model is really applicable in any life cycle approach, be it predictive or adaptive, iterative, incremental, and agile, right? In any of those environments, the ADDIE model goes through analysis, right? Deliverables like defining what are our expected business goals and outcomes of this training. A learner analysis, understanding the student population and the audience and defining what will be those course objectives that we're going to write to teach to. Design, right? Creating things like your rough sketches, your storyboards, design maps, your templates, your color scheme, right? All of the artifacts that you plan to work within as you, next step, develop, right? Now you're creating your presentation materials, your PowerPoints, your instructor guide, your student guide and exercise resources, all the artifacts, technology resources, support systems that are going to need to be in place. You're developing all of those things. The implementation portion of this, right? We're training the trainer. We're conducting pilot training and collecting that feedback from the first wave of users. We're deploying the training. We're registering students. We're going to different places to actually deploy the training. And then, of course, evaluate, right? We're getting that immediate feedback from learners via their course evaluations. We're finding out what they learned via assessments, follow-on review of their performance improvement, quality reviews of the course, people watching the instructor, watching the delivery of the course, the instructor providing feedback. So evaluating, was the training effective from a number of different perspectives and standpoints, right? So ADDIE, analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate. And as we said, we could think of this as a predictive life cycle where you do these phases beginning to end. I've worked on plenty of projects where that's exactly how we do it. We really go through all of these steps once. Each phase, the results of each phase flow down into the next phase. Could follow ADDIE in a very predictive approach. But we also generally, even if we're doing those things sequentially, we don't think of it as a one-shot deal, like one pass through the life cycle. We know that it's really an iterative life cycle. Analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate, and oh, by the way, that evaluation feeds into the next round of analysis. So it's kind of with a spiral approach or an iterative approach. ADDIE works just as well that way. And I think even, as I said, those of us who might be used to ADDIE in a predictive project environment, you know that it doesn't stop, right? After evaluate, you go right back to analysis many times with the same course. So hey, guess what? That's iterative. Incremental as well, right? From kind of a program level, we could follow the stages in sequence, but at the project level, we're working in an incremental delivery fashion. So you see on the slide here, like sprint after sprint, we're going to plan at the beginning and deliver at the end of each sprint. And you'll see the progression, right? If at the program level, we're moving through ADDIE, we're starting to get into implementation and evaluation, well, that's when you start to see release, right? Not just delivery, but actual release. We're deploying this training to the end users. We're evaluating it. We're potentially even deploying updates as we make those updates. So ADDIE can be incremental. And then finally, we know that Agile is iterative and incremental. It's kind of the value of both, and especially a very prescriptive framework like Scrum. We could even make the connection and make this crosswalk of within a single sprint, in the Scrum framework, you're hitting all of the elements of the ADDIE model, right? Analysis. We have a product backlog, that prioritized list of everything we could ever possibly develop within our training product. Well, that's analysis, that identification and prioritization of those user stories. There you go. Analyze. A. Next phase, right? Design. Well, at the beginning of every sprint, we do that sprint planning meeting where we create the sprint backlog. We have design conversations with the team. So we're doing design. There's our ADDIE phase again, right? The sprint continues, and really, I don't want to, by my color scheme here, imply that within a given sprint, it's, design, develop, implement. With the Agile mindset, we know that it's all of those things always happening, and that's why you see the sprint icon there bleeding across all three. So yes, sprint planning could be most associated with design, but we continue to design throughout the sprint while we develop, right? Towards the end of the sprint, we deliver that potentially shippable product increment. So we're implementing, right? Now we're moving along in the ADDIE model. We get to implement. We're delivering a potentially shippable product increment, a releasable component of our training. Whether or not the product owner decides to actually release it, we're still delivering it to them in working form. It's ready to go. So we're implementing. And then evaluate, right? In that sprint review meeting, in our sprint retrospective, what are we doing? We're reflecting on the product. We're reflecting on the process. So again, please don't let me, shoehorn a predictive life cycle into an adaptive life cycle or vice versa. But we do see the similarities and the crosswalk between, we're doing all of these things with Agile. We're doing all of these things with the ADDIE model. So really, for training and development projects, Agile is nothing new. It's all about learning. It's all about continuous improvement, and that's exactly what training projects are focused on and all about. My friends, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you'll agree that the mindset, tools, and practices of Agile fit very nicely with the established best practices that we know in training, development, and delivery. And I hope that you find this valuable in your training, development, and delivery projects. To get started, I encourage you to check out the 2 remaining videos in this series on being Agile educators. We've got a short video on applying Agile mindset and tools to your training development projects, more on the instructional design side, and training delivery in the classroom. How can we apply mindset and tools of Agile to teaching? So check out part 3 for that topic. I'm enjoying this conversation, and I don't want it to be such a one-sided conversation. I'd love to hear from you. What can I learn from you on this topic? You can reach out to me anytime. Jeff Beveridge, jbeveridge@cornerpostmanagement.com. You can, of course, visit me at cornerpostmanagement.com or jeffbeveridge.com. They both go to the same place, but it's been brought to my attention that my name is easier to remember than my company's name. So you can type either one in your web browser and come find me. Looking forward to that conversation. Have a wonderful day.